Synergy loves company.
With activations across our Synergy machine.
We have this coterie of rich franchises, the company now, that people want to engage with.
I came here to try and continue what Walt Disney and his associates set in motion 50 years ago, which is to experiment with every new and innovative kind of entertainment possible.
It's what we hope to do here, to really develop something that, just more than an entertainment enterprise. It's something that contributes many other ways.
Hey, this is Synergy Loves Company, where we explore how Disney connects to everything. I'm Eric Hathorn, and keeping me company today is you. Maybe you're watching live, maybe you're watching on YouTube, maybe you are listening to the podcast version of this, but I'm doing a solo episode. And whenever I do a solo episode, it's going to be available in all those different ways. So I'm excited if you do stumble upon this evening while I'm recording it live. But then, of course, welcome to you watching it, listening to it in the future. If you do want to know when I am going live, if you're listening to this in the future, make sure you follow me on Twitter. Make sure you take a look at my YouTube page, and you'll see when all those are going live. But today, it's me, it's you. We're talking about October. This is my October episode. I haven't done an episode yet in October, and I'm waiting towards the end of the month because we're getting closer to Halloween. And I wanted to do a Halloween episode, but I don't really like scary things. So I'm not going to focus on scary movies because that's not what I like to watch. If you ever listen to me on my other show, Rare Cuts Media Society, with my friends who we watch movies and read books and listen to music and decide to review them together and kind of book club them together. A lot of my friends, the other panelists, pick scary movies. I don't like to watch them. I never pick a scary movie. So I'm not here to do something scary today. I am going to pick something a little bit different as far as Halloween goes. One thing that I do like to do every October around Halloween is listen to heavy metal music. I love heavy metal. I love all kinds of heavy metal. I especially love the glammed out arena rock, hair metal type heavy metal. But every October, I want to listen to something a little harder, a little heavier. And that's when I listen to a little bit more of that darker side of metal. And I was listening to a lot of metal this October, and it made me think of this time when Disney went metal. So I thought it would be cool for my not so scary Halloween episode to talk about Disney and heavy metal. I'm so excited. All right, so I'm still doing this on the, like I said, I'm still doing this with the live stream. So I'm going to try to get my stuff in here and set up. Let me see if we go here, and we are going to have Disney and heavy metal. This is what we're doing. Awesome sauce. All right, so I'm going to get right into it. We're going to talk Disney. We're going to talk heavy metal. And specifically, we're going to talk about official times that Disney went metal. There were a couple of times when Disney didn't do so much, or Disney wasn't the one making the metal. There's a lot of metal covers out there that Disney is not creating for themselves. Other people are licensing the songs and recording them. But I want to talk about the times when Disney actually put that heavy metal out there for us to listen to. So here we go. We're going to dive into the world of Disney and heavy metal. So there's two albums, and you could see I'm going to talk about D-Metal Stars and their album Metal Disney, and we're going to talk about Disney Super Guitar. These I'm really excited to talk about. I've been listening to them for a while, and they've kind of made it into my rotation, and I'm really happy that I have these to share with you today. Hopefully, we can kind of get into the history of it a little bit tonight. We can get into some of the different tracks and some of the things I really liked about the albums, some of the things that were really pretty neat here. So Disney heavy metal. This is Synergy Live, the first Synergy Live solo episode we got here. I'm so excited. Let's get into it. So Disney has two heavy metal albums that kind of came out just really not that long ago, in 2016 and in 2018. And if you take a look, we've got Metal Disney, which is by the D Metal Stars, and we've got Disney Super Guitar. And Metal Disney and Disney Super Guitar are kind of like two in a series. We're going to get into it, and you're going to see kind of how these albums came about and what they're like. They're kind of different, but they both have that metal feel. So I'm really excited here to get into talking first about how we got here, and we have to go all the way to Japan before we could talk about heavy metal Disney. We have to talk about Animetal. So Animetal or Animetal is a Japanese heavy metal band who would cover anime themes and songs, the songs from animes and the movies, the shows. They cover the songs in their heavy metal style. You can, get a sense of what that might sound like. If you're an anime fan, I'm not as into anime, so I'm not as familiar. But if you're an anime fan, you could think about those. I know a lot of the anime songs that I have heard have that guitar influence. So maybe it would be an easy transition from anime song right over to our heavy metal versions of the song. So Animetal had a successful career in the late 90s and early 2000s, making these heavy metal covers of anime songs. They went for a while and then they disbanded, but not, it wasn't unnoticed. There were some American musicians who saw what Animetal were doing, and they got really excited and decided to carry the torch, pick up the torch again, and make Animetal USA. They were still a Japanese-based heavy metal band, but they were making anime songs with these American musicians, sometimes in English, sometimes in Japanese, and they were kind of picking up the torch from where Animetal left off and continued on. The Animetal albums, the Animetal USA albums, were very popular in Japan. They kind of sold to that anime-loving metal fan niche, and it wasn't before long that Disney decided they wanted to get into the game of heavy metal and their songs, just like these anime songs that were turned into heavy metal versions. So when Disney was looking for who could make our Animetal-like albums, they approached the lead singer. You see, of course, Animetal is the band you're going to go to get the right person. So they went to Michael Viscera, who was the leader of Animetal USA. And he created the sound for the Disney metal album. So he took what he learned with Animetal USA, which was the inspiration from the original Japanese Animetal, and he kind of came back here with a sound that would be right for Disney. He most famously was the lead vocalist for Yngwie Malmsteen's band. So Yngwie Malmsteen is an instrumental guitarist, neoclassical style, very heavy, but has that kind of classical music style with the heavy distortion guitar going into it. But usually Yngwie Malmsteen's music is instrumental. When Michael Viscera would be in his band, he'd be singing lyrics to songs that would have words. So Michael Viscera got used to both supporting an artist like Yngwie Malmsteen by singing, but also when he wasn't singing, he would sometimes play keyboards. So he kind of had that both things going on. He worked on his own solo project. He worked with the band Obsession and the Japanese band Loudness, who had some 80s hits had a big hit in the 80s back in the day with Rock and Roll Crazy Nights. So he was really the perfect person, when you think about it, for Disney to approach. He had been in Animetal USA. He had worked with a lot of American metal bands. He was ready to take this Disney music and turn it into metal. So he had to put together a group of other members to join the D Metal Stars. So we have John Bruno on guitar. John Bruno had been known from some bands like Michael Viscera's solo projects and Obsession with Michael Viscera. These two had been in bands together a lot. Michael Viscera, of course, is the vocalist here and kind of the glue holding this Disney project together. And then we've got Rudy Sarzo was playing bass, who famously, he played with a lot of bands like Ozzy Osbourne's band, Whitesnake, Quiet Riot, and he was actually in Animetal USA himself. So we have some more connections to Michael Vocera. We see he's the one putting this band together for Disney to make this Disney music metal band. And then finally rounding out the lineup, we've got BJ Zampa on drums, and he was in a band called House of Lords, and he was also in Obsession with Michael Vocera, and he was in Yngwie Malmsteen's solo, his band, his backup band with Michael Vocera. So you can see Michael Vocera used his network of all the bands he had been in to assemble this super group of these metal stars to create this Disney project. So Disney cover albums in a different genre isn't new. And I want to kind of talk about that before we go into this album. It's not new. You could find Disney cover albums in almost any sort of genre. And it's everywhere. You got country music, you've got pop music, there's some punk rock, Disney covers. They're all sorts of things. And when it comes to metal sometimes gets the reputation that it's bigger in Japan. There's kind of a cliche that bands will say, hey, we're bigger in Japan. Metal is kind of interesting because I was reading and doing some research into Japan and metal, and it's not necessarily bigger in Japan than it is in the US. It's not like it's the only thing on the radio. It's not like it's the most popular thing. But it seems, from what I can tell, that Japan is a little more accepting of metal to be woven into its other types of pop music on the radio. You might hear more guitars in the pop music in Japan, and kind of more metal influence that comes up through that. So maybe it's not necessarily bigger in Japan, but maybe it's more widely embraced in Japan. And I think one of the reasons that I kind of hit on is a lot of the Japanese music that I did try to listen to in preparation for kind of setting this album as to where it would fit in the landscape of music, is a lot of the Japanese music I listen to is very uplifting, upbeat. And the style of metal that the D-metal stars play is like this power metal that's also very upbeat, very fast, very kind of, it gets you feeling good. It's the kind of metal that'll energize you. It's not a bad version of a metal album to work out to. It'll pump you up. It'll get you going. So I want to kind of go in and talk about this album. I've got to go through the track list a little bit and tell you where I think it kind of does some really awesome stuff, and maybe where it falls a little flat. So this album has 11 songs. We've got an intro, which is actually When You Wish Upon a Star, and then that becomes the last track. So it kind of bookends the whole album, and it kind of gives it a nice kind of wrap up cohesiveness that makes it sound really good. And then from there's a really eclectic mix of a lot of different music throughout all of Disney's history. We've got the Mickey Mouse March from the Mickey Mouse Club, I See the Light from Rapunzel, A Whole New World from Aladdin, It's a Small World from the ride It's a Small World, Beauty and the Beast, Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid. I didn't think I had to say Beauty and the Beast was from Beauty and the Beast, but anyways. Go the Distance from Hercules, Can You Feel the Love Tonight from The Lion King. There's a Disney medley that I'm going to dive into a little bit later because it's got a lot of songs packed into it. And then, like I said, we bookend it with When You Wish Upon a Star. Some of my favorite songs off this album, I will say, are Go the Distance. It has the makings of a metal song. If you think about Go to the Distance from Hercules and the way it builds, and hey, even like the pop version originally, Michael Bolton sang it, and Michael Bolton was originally metal. He wasn't originally that pop crooner kind of dude that he is now. He started out metal. He opened for Ozzy Osbourne. So Go the Distance is definitely at the top of the list for me on this album. I think that's a good one to get you pumped up. That's a good workout song. I would recommend that one on your workout playlist. Go the Distance from Hercules by D-Metal Stars from the Metal Disney album. Put it on your playlist. So that is one of my favorites. I really love how their treatment of Can You Feel the Love Tonight and A Whole New World, those two kind of have a nice kind of driving power ballad feel, but they still are very energetic because we keep that power metal feeling throughout the whole album. one place where I was a little disappointed, and I think it was a missed opportunity. Like I said, I really liked the power ballad feel of A Whole New World and Can You Feel the Love Tonight. I wish I See the Light from Rapunzel, from Tangled. I said it was from Rapunzel. Did I do that earlier? I totally did. We're leaving it in. This is live. So from Tangled, I See the Light is probably my favorite Disney song of all time. I love that song. Mandy Moore, I love all of it. Anyways, the I See the Light version they do here, they kind of start out with like a power ballad version, and then they go into this like super power metal version of it that has, you know, the double bass drum going, like it almost sounds like a lawnmower. It's going so fast, and it's just kind of like, and it's going, and I really wish they could have turned it into an epic power ballad in a similar way that they do with Can You Feel the Love Tonight and A Whole New World. So that was one that really missed it for me. I do think that's probably because I have an attachment to the original song, and I really wished it could have went a certain way. But if you listen to D Metal Stars, Metal Disney, and you think that one of these is, you know, the top that I didn't pick for the top, or you think one of these is the bottom that I didn't pick, you say, you know, Eric, that one was terrible. Let me know. Let me know on Twitter. Let me know in the comments on YouTube. Let me know somewhere what you felt about it. I'd love to talk about this album with you, because it's still fun. Whether you love it or hate it, you got to admit that it's still fun. So let's get into that other part I said with the Disney medley. The medleys are something that Animetal did a lot. Both the original Japanese Animetal and the Animetal USA, they do these compilations. They might take a bunch of songs from an anime that had, kind of multiple songs from it, do the intro and do some songs from in the show. Metal Disney does the same thing. So they do this kind of medley of songs that maybe are a little too short to get their own treatment. They're a lot more classic Disney songs, and I think it's really fun. So the medley goes into Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, Hi Ho with the dig 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 part, which is kind of cool because they make that pretty metal with dwarfs digging, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, Winnie the Pooh, which Winnie the Pooh is a metal song is kind of strange. You got to hear it. So I definitely listen to the Disney medley too, if not just for the weirdness there. And then of course they end with Zippity Doo Dah, which, you know, is controversial and probably shouldn't be on stuff from like this recent. But it's there, and I know the guys making the music probably had some nostalgia since Disney used that song so often in marketing and all that. But anyways, these 5 songs make up the Disney medley. They're a little shorter versions of them. Because of that, we don't get much of a guitar solo in this song, but it kind of goes fast through each of them, and I kind of like that for this. It would have been cool to maybe have a couple more medleys in there where we could hit even more Disney songs and get more in there. Guitar solos on this, of course, a metal song's got to have a great guitar solo. So there are some great kind of soaring guitar solos that come in here that just shred and, you know, melt your face off kind of stuff. It's wonderful. But overall, this album is it's very cohesive. I'll give you that. I don't want to say it's one note because there's a lot of things that happen here, but it's all the same feel. And if you're into the feel of this album, you'll really enjoy it. But if this album isn't the kind of heavy metal you're looking for, it's not going to really resonate with you. You can really tell that it was all made by the same band at the same time. And I personally would have loved to see this as a compilation, maybe from a few different bands doing their own versions of these songs. It was cool that they put it together because I understand they were trying to go for that anti-metal kind of thing, like the anime cover band, but I still feel like I would have preferred that. Now, this album did do really well in Japan. It wasn't like the best seller of its time, but it did premiere pretty high on like the Amazon children's music charts. Yes, it charted on children's music charts in Japan. But of course, metal fans, I'm sure, enjoyed it too. And so when it did so well in 2016 in Japan, they decided to release it in the US in 2017, just the next year. And it did fine. It did fine. It wasn't, of course, like maybe you haven't even heard of it. It wasn't like the biggest release in the world. It wasn't originally made for the US market. It was made to get that same audience as Animetal, and it kind of succeeded at that. So Disney gave it a go here in the US. And it did well enough that the band got a chance to make another album. So they didn't just make another D Metal Stars album. They went ahead and made this album called Disney Super Guitar. Now, Disney Super Guitar is kind of the sequel. Like we said, it got to make a second album, kind of a sequel to D Metal Stars' Metal Disney album, but it's something entirely different. In fact, I really think I like Disney Super Guitar a little bit better than I like the D Metal Stars Metal Disney album. Disney Super Guitar is pretty cool in that it has different heavy metal guitarists featured on each of the tracks. It has a variety of metal artists playing here. It does keep the same backup band. The backing band is pretty much the same as the D Metal Stars, except we get one little switch out. We get all the same ones, except on bass, Michael Viscera's brother Chris takes the helm, and he's the bassist for the project. So a lot of it's the same, but we get that one little change. But just having a new guitarist on every single track does change the complete feeling of each song on the track. It does change the arrangement. I really do think that on D Metal Stars, since they're all working together as a band to make it, we get that kind of similar feel and sound throughout the album. But on Disney Super Guitar, it's really those solo guitarists who are steering the ship. In the cast of guitar virtuosos on this album really shines. Now, I'm going to geek out about metal guitars. Metal guitarists are amazing. I love some heavy metal music. I cannot play guitar for the life of me. I've tried. I've got, you might see sometimes I have if you're watching this, you'll see I have a guitar amp behind me that doesn't get much use because I'm not that good and I don't play it that often. But I have this appreciation for metal guitarists and what they can do. And I have watched them, enjoyed their craft. I do love a good instrumental heavy metal guitar. And that's what we get from Disney Super Guitar. So let's get into this metal solo guitar album here. All right. The first track starts super strong. And I will say this album does kind of put a lot of the biggest names, the heaviest hitters towards the beginning. And they might be, if you're a metal fan, you might know all of these names. But if you're not a metal fan, you still might know some of these artists from the beginning here of our lineup. So the first one that we get is Zakk Wylde's version of Beauty and the Beast. And I'm going to tell you, Zakk Wylde has been Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist for a long time. I think he might be his longest running guitarist for his solo band. So Zakk Wylde, Ozzy Osbourne, you might have already a thought in your head of what Zakk Wylde's going to sound like. He's also been, his solo project, Black Label Society, has been very popular throughout the years. And he recently joined up with Pantera for their kind of reunion tour to place Dimebag Darrell. Since he passed away and can't join the band, Zakk Wylde's going to be filling in for him on the reunion tour. So he's got some of the hardest metal feel under his belt if we talk about metal. But his version of Beauty and the Beast is beautiful. It's bluesy. It's soaring. It's just like a great way to kick off the album. It makes you smile. It doesn't sound anything like a Crazy Train. I mean, that wasn't Zakk Wylde, but it's talking about Ozzy Osbourne's kind of solo stuff. It doesn't have that Ozzy Osbourne feel. It doesn't necessarily have that Black Label Society feel. Zakk Wylde is doing a treatment on the original song, and he's playing metal within the boundaries of that ballad. So it's got that kind of light ballad feel, but it's got his guitar with some soaring blues going over it. It's a really great way to kick off this Disney Super Guitar album, and it gives you a good feeling of what you're in store for, this instrumental version of Beauty and the Beast. Like I said before with some of the tracks on D Metal Stars, Metal Disney, this is a great one. A lot of these are great ones to put on your workout playlist. They'll get you pumped up through those Disney tunes, but they're kind of those high energy versions of them. So Zakk Wylde, great way to kick off the album. Next, we get Paul Gilbert. You might know Paul Gilbert from Mr. Big. I'm the one who wants to be with you. Don't make me sing anymore. That was terrible. But that was their big hit back in 1990, that song. Now, that song doesn't scream guitar, but Paul Gilbert is known as one of the greatest guitarists. If we go look at Rolling Stone lists and things like that, he's always up there. And he's from Mr. Big, that band that you might know from I'm the One Who Wants to Be With You, that song back in the early 90s. He does this version of Under the Sea, and he uses a wah pedal on his guitar to make it sound like the guitar tone. The guitar is coming from underwater and bubbling up. The guitar notes sound all bubbly. It's really fun. You kind of get the seriousness of Beauty and the Beast with Zakk Wylde, followed by kind of the fun playfulness of Paul Gilbert's Under the Sea. From what I've listened to with Paul Gilbert, with Mr. Big, also on his solo career, he is kind of a fun-loving guitarist. You can see and hear that in his performances. So this one, that's the best way I'm going to describe it. He has a lot of fun. The guitar sounds like it's under the sea. Our next track is When You Wish Upon a Star. So some of these songs we had the same songs from D Metal Stars. Now they're being reinterpreted. I'm going to tell you almost every time I prefer the Disney Super Guitar version. Sure, they're all instrumental, but they all have a very different feel. And Tak Matsumoto's version of this song, When You Wish Upon a Star, it really shows his songwriting and producing credits, because he's in the band Bizu also, but he's really known for his producing and arranging. And he goes and triples his guitar at certain times. He does a lot of different feels. He might not be the best shredder on this album, where he's going and shredding scales and doing crazy solos, but you can see with his version of When You Wish Upon a Star, he's really thought out how that song was going to come together. Goes through different phases. He produces the heck out of it. And you get to hear this kind of journey that goes through it, which does a great service to the song When You Wish Upon a Star. It doesn't just make it totally metal. It makes it something of its own, something wonderful. It pays homage to the original song, but it makes it something more. He adds his style to it. So that one is definitely a highlight. Mike Orlando's A Whole New World does feel like you are flying on a magic carpet. On this track, Mike Orlando from the band Adrenaline Mob, he puts a lot of adrenaline behind it. And you kind of get the feeling like you are soaring and flying on a magic carpet. So he kind of pushes it to the limit. It's no longer a ballad. It's more of an adventurous journey. It's really exciting. Some of these ones, like I'm saying, they don't necessarily have like a super hard metal feel, but they have that inspirational kind of building up feel that we get from that power metal version of the song. But all these ones kind of let the original song shine through in different ways. So really soaring, really feeling like you're on a magic carpet. Mike Orlando's Whole New World. This one is probably my favorite song, and I have to talk about Orianthi because I remember when her song According to You was on the radio, and I was kind of blown away as a metal fan because she's singing this pop song, and then all of a sudden this guitar comes in and kind of solos and tears through everything. Sometimes Orianthi makes her guitar sound kind of like a wild, large cat growling. She can do that. It's one of her like signature moves. So it's aggressive. It comes at you in that aggressive way. And she kind of ripped through that song According to You, which was big on the radio for a while. Orianthi also, I saw her on the Michael Jackson documentary, This Is It. She was supposed to be Michael Jackson's touring guitarist on the This Is It tour. Apparently she auditioned with Eruption by Van Halen, and then the Beat It solo from, it was Michael Jackson. She's like played it note for note, all these Van Halen songs. to get the style that he wanted, and she immediately got the job. So she's in that documentary, This Is It. Of course, the This Is It tour never happened because Michael Jackson passed away before it got off the ground. But Orianthi has a version on here of Someday My Prince Will Come. And she takes that song, which is actually pretty short when we think about the movie, and she turns it from just like a passive, this is what I want song, you know, that I want song from the beginning of Snow White with the Someday My Prince Will Come. And she turns it into a battle cry. She turns it into this, like, I'm charging into battle with this Someday My Prince Will Come. There's actually a part in the middle of the song where she kind of just like improvises a solo, like, you know, plays a solo with the song, and she does that thing where her guitar kind of growls at you, and it just kind of brings, it's like an in-your-face version of Someday My Prince Will Come, which I really love because she kind of flips the script on its head and makes it more of an aggressive song than a passive song. And you could really see her style here. You really get an awesome version of this classic Disney song. I would say that this one is probably my favorite song on the album, Orianthi's Someday My Prince Will Come. If it's not my favorite song, this next one seriously is. And George Lynch from Dokken. You might know Dokken. They're that glam metal band from the 80s. They had a song. They had a few songs, I think, on horror movie soundtracks. They had Dream Warriors from one of the Nightmare on Elm Street ones. They were kind of a darker horror movie glam metal or hair metal. But George Lynch from Dokken takes on Hellfire. I mean, with a name like Hellfire, that pretty much should be a metal song, right? Hellfire. I think he was probably looking through the Disney music catalog and was like, Hellfire, I'm doing that one because it was easy, right? Hellfire, that's a metal song already. But Hellfire is from, how many times can I say Hellfire? Hellfire is from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And because it has that Hunchback style, it's got that classicalness to it, it translates perfectly to a heavy metal solo. So on this one, if you're going to go back and listen to Hellfire, which it's a close tie between Someday My Prince Will Come and Hellfire for me as my favorite from this. Remember, if you have a favorite from this after listening to it, let me know what it is on Twitter. Let me know what it is on the YouTube comments. Let me know, because it's my favorite, and I want to know if it's your favorite or if you're like, no, that one was terrible. So anyways, Hellfire by George Lynch, he turns it into a metal song. He transforms it. It sounds perfect. It sounds enough like the original one, but it sounds like something completely different, something so metal. I think this is the most metal song on this album, and I love it for that. I know I was talking about how I love that the other songs kind of let their different personalities of the guitarists kind of show, which aren't always metal. Some are bluesy, some are kind of soaring inspirational. This one does go into that neoclassical metal shredding that is that's so amazing. All right, George Lynch from Dokken, Hellfire. There, I said it again. All right, so now we get into some more ballads here. We were talking some ballads earlier. These ones feel like ballads. We get Richie Kotzen's Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Now, Richie Kotzen has done some solo stuff. He also played for Mr. Big for a while when Paul Gilbert, who we talked about earlier, who was in Mr. Big, left for a minute. He played in Poison when their guitarist, CeCe DeVille, left for a minute. He's kind of that guy who came in and played for those bands when someone left for a minute. But Richie Kotzen also has had his wonderful solo career, and he does a great job with Can You Feel the Love Tonight? It's one of those power ballads that he kind of lets wail on guitar, and we can feel it pretty great like that. Of course, it came after my favorite two songs. So yeah, let's move on. If you like Can You Feel the Love Tonight, let me know. Jeff Watson's Colors of the Wind. Jeff Watson, of course, from Night Ranger. Yes, Night Ranger. They had some great power ballads back in the day, good old Night Ranger. He plays Colors of the Wind, and he kind of rips through it in a way that is kind of a wall of sound. When he plays it, it's kind of charging at you. It's not the Colors of the Wind that we're used to. It's not Vanessa Williams' Colors of the Wind. It is kind of this barrage of sound, a wall of sound coming at you. And he really charges, and he changes the feel of the song. He charges it right at you. Definitely a different feel, something to check out, especially if you're into that hard metal. Jeff Watson's known for like this finger tapping thing that he does, 8 fingers, and he uses it here. He uses it. You'll hear it, all those 8 fingers coming right at you in this song. Our next one, because I am going track by track through Disney Super Guitar, if you haven't heard or figured that out yet, is we have Phil X's Chim Chimmery, which is kind of one that it wasn't used on the other album. There's a lot of them that are used on both of these albums, but Chim Chim Cheree does have this dark feel to it. If you think back to Mary Poppins and that kind of haunting melody of Chim Chim Cheree, and he kind of leans into the darkness of it, and he really gives us this dark version of Chim Chim Cheree. Now, Phil X has been known as a studio session guitarist. He played in the studio for a lot of different artists, for a lot of different bands when they needed some extra instrumentation. But he most famously recently took over as the lead guitarist in Bon Jovi. So you can see Phil with Bon Jovi these days. Phil X is there. He's rocking. He's having a good time as the lead singer of Bon Jovi. You could check him out here with his Mary Poppins cover of Chim Chim Cheree, which I said he leans into the darkness of. Last but not least, the last song on Disney Super Guitar is Reflection from Mulan, performed by Ron Bumblefoot Thal. So Ron Rosenthal, also known as Bumblefoot, which is a really gross disease that animals can get. Animals can get bumblefoot. He actually, this is a weird story, but I couldn't help but see it when I looked him up. He got his name Bumblefoot when he was helping his wife study for a veterinary exam, and they were reading about bumblefoot, this gross, you'll see pictures online if you Google it, a gross disease that animals can get. So he decided to use that as his heavy metal name. Gross. Yeah. But anyways, Ron Bumblefoot Thal does Reflection by Mulan, and it's the perfect ending track to this album. It is a victory lap. He takes the song and he runs it around the track one more time as that victory lap. And you could kind of feel like this would be like at the end of the movie. Mulan, of course, is rocking and rolling here, and she is kind of, reflection over the course of her journey, and you would be able to see this kind of going on, like this triumphantness of Reflection by Ron Bumblefoot Thal. It's really cool. This would be a great soaring, put it on your workout list, put it on your running playlist, put it on something like that to get you kind of feeling that awesome, pumped up feeling that you would want from this victory lap of a song. So that's it. There are 10 songs on Disney Super Guitar, and each one has its own little place that's very different from the rest of them. I think overall, if I had to pick one, and you probably could guess this by listening to me here, but if I had to pick one, Disney Super Guitar is definitely my favorite. And I think it comes from the variety that we get from Disney Super Guitar, all these influences of all these different heavy metal guitarists, these soloists who are putting their own spin on the songs. We get a much better variety of an album. When I talked about Metal Disney by D Metal Stars, one thing I did say is that it has a very similar feeling across the board, which is great if you're really into the very type of metal that they're making. I find it good, but I find myself gravitating more towards Disney Super Guitar because it has that variety and that great feeling. I want to know from you, though, too. I want to know which one you like better. Do you like Metal Disney? Do you like Disney Super Guitar? Maybe you don't like either of them and you want to tell me about some other Disney covers that you love in metal. There are some great Disney covers of metal out there. I didn't go through all of the YouTube artists who do them. There's artists on Spotify who do them. Maybe we'll do a different episode about those metal artists. I wanted to go on the specific ones that were Disney sanctioned. These two albums have the distinction of being the Disney sanctioned metal albums. Disney helped put these together to try to reach that same audience as Animetal. So these ones are Disney products. A lot of the other stuff out there is Disney covers that were just done by bands because they wanted to do them. They paid their licensing. They did their thing. These two are the time that Disney actually went metal on their own. I, of course, I realized I did a lot of episodes that had to do with music. If you like listening to me talk about music, which I know is weird because I didn't play any of the songs because I don't want to get any copyright infringements. But anyways, I didn't play the songs. I told you about them, but you might want to hear the songs. You might want to hear what these songs are all about. I hope you do. I hope you take a listen, and I hope you let me know what you liked and what you didn't like. And one of the ways that you could take a listen, and this is something I try to do whenever I do a musical episode, is I made a playlist on Spotify. It's called Synergy Loves Company Play It. I like to do these compilations when I do a musical one. Now, I didn't do one. I did do an episode on Disney and Aerosmith. I should probably revisit that one with a playlist. So stay tuned. I'll probably pop one out for that later. Note to self. Let's write that down. Let's note to self, do an Aerosmith playlist. But I did do one when I explored Perry Grip with my daughter Maddie, and now I have another one here when I explored this time that Disney went metal. On the playlist, you're going to see Metal Disney, the album, followed by Disney Super Guitar, followed by a couple of tracks, one from Animetal and one from Animetal USA. They're both actually the same song, so you could kind of hear the difference between the two Animetal bands, since that's where this Disney metal project came from. It came out of that Animetal project that led to Disney wanting to get a little piece of that animation turned metal prize there. And so you could hear all those. And then, of course, at the end of that playlist, you'll find this podcast episode if you've already listened to it. If you stumbled upon my playlist and listened to it all the way through and then heard my podcast, well, welcome. And definitely connect with me. Let me know what you thought about the playlist, what you thought about the podcast episode, anything like that. So go follow me on Twitter if you want to see where this playlist is. Take a look at the show notes on the podcast. Take a look at the description on YouTube, and you'll find the playlist for Synergy Loves Company Play It, Metal Disney. So with that, I think I am ready to wrap things up. I do want to remind you that you can find me online at synergylovescompany.com. On Twitter, I'm at Eric H. Synergy. On Instagram, I'm at Synergy Loves Company. On Facebook, I'm at Synergy Loves Company, and same as Instagram, you can find me there. I'm probably the most on Twitter, even though I'm not the best at social media there. You could also, of course, check out the website. If you listen to the podcast, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast player you use, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Make sure you subscribe. And you could find the ways to subscribe on my website, synergylovescompany.com. And then, of course, if you really like this show, I would love it if you would tell a friend about the show. Maybe you have Disney friends that like to listen to Disney things, and you say, hey, take a listen to Synergy Loves Company. Eric talks a lot about Disney things. If you have Disney friends, I want your Disney friends to be my Disney friends, and I want you, of course, to be my Disney friends. So, reach out to them, tell them to listen to the show, tell them to engage with us here and just kind of enjoy the show. The other thing is for specific episodes, because you might know that all the Synergy Loves Company episodes are something plus Disney. We like to look at something plus Disney. This one, if you have any metalhead friends, we all got that metalhead friend, right? Maybe a few. If you got some metalhead friends who are into, maybe not even into Disney, they might not even know that they're into Disney, but they have that nostalgia in the back of their head. But if you have any metal friends, tell them about this specific episode, because maybe they'd want to hear all about Disney metal in these ways that they did that. And of course, send them over to synergylovescompany.com, where they could find the show on their favorite podcast catcher. Other than that, I am going to tell you thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching live, if you're watching in YouTube after the fact, thank you so much. I can't wait to meet up with you again next time. Have a great one. We've got some great shows lined up coming up in November probably. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast, make sure you're subscribed there. And I will see you next time on Synergy Loves Company.